What's up, everybody? Missing Links here. And we're going to be talking about today. It's like, have you ever been like so wrong about something for so long, and then you see the light, and then all of a sudden, like your whole set of practices is different. Well, that's happened to me, a number of times with music production. But what we're talking about in particular is a subject very near and dear to my heart, related to workflow. But if you had asked me about it even a couple years ago, I would have been so adamantly against it. I would have been like, "No, this makes you like kills off creativity. It turns you into robot mode and like, you're not even like creating good ideas or whatever when you approach music like this." Which is not true. Not at all. I had it completely backwards and it was just, I thought I knew and I didn't. Um, so we're going to be talking about using like checklists and like systems and stuff like that for music production a little bit today, and also games to train speed. All right, so let's start with timer beats. Now, the way I was taught a timer beat is it's 30 minutes to write a song, right? And we're talking about like, drops and breaks and builds, all of it. And usually it looks something like 5 minutes for all the drums and subs, right? 5 minutes for all your chord progressions and the sounds, right? 5 minutes for leads, 5 minutes for like bass sound design and chopping them into like pads, and 5 minutes for like sequencing that all, and then 5 minutes to arrange the track and detail it, right? Super crazy. It's really, really stressful. It's like you feel like you're sprinting the whole time and that you're just constantly making decisions. And that's the point, is it trains you to make decisions quickly, to not second guess those decisions, to focus on the highest impacting activities you can, that it's going to make the biggest difference in the song, and just get all the free or the friction out of the production process possible. Um, and so I was taught this at the Producer Dojo by Il Gates, and on his channel, he's got like 200 videos or something of him doing these 30-minute timer beats live. It's wild, and the music he creates during them is shockingly good a lot of the time. Um, so, highly recommending this. I'm going to give you a couple variants because I found stuff that really works for me. So I've been doing longer timer beats for a couple of reasons. I still feel like I'm under the gun. I've been usually doing about 2 hours lately. And so I still feel like rushed, but I'm not just writing the parts, I'm taking one extra step of refinement along the way, right? And I think it's really important to train that, right? So it's like, how do you take what you've written and kick it up a notch, or even two notches in like another 5 minutes, right? And like making those high impacting decisions, whether it's adding like one effect with like a little bit of automation, or just like sequencing it a little bit differently, where there's like a couple of bits of silence and a couple like pitch shifts or whatever it is. Um, so I think that it's really valuable to train those types of decision making along the way. And the other reason I really like these types of timer beats is, whereas at the end of the 30-minute ones, I would just feel like, one, I'd be like beat because it's like sprinting, right? And sprinting just like takes it out of you. But also I wouldn't usually like what I came up with. Like it was like I might recognize its potential, but it was so messy and so rough around the edges that like just fixing it up was going to be a lot of effort. And like, yeah, whereas with these other ones, like if I spend 2 hours on it, I actually really like the results, right? I've come up with something good. I've made it the most of what it is, like to a certain extent, right? Made sure all the parts are solid and that they sound good together. And so it's actually a quite clean finished product, that creating it and finishing it as a song is not so daunting. So for these longer timer beats, I usually break it up into 6 20-minute segments. So I'll spend like 20 minutes on chords, then I'll go like 20 minutes on drums, etc. You can do it in whatever order makes sense to you. I like to start with chords personally, but sometimes I'll start with drums depending. Just whatever works for you, just make sure you cover all the bases. So the other thing that's really good for a similar reason is doing 30 minutes, but instead of trying to write a whole song, right, you just write one loop for 30 minutes, but you try and make it as good as possible, right? And so this could be like a whole like super loop where it's got the drums and like everything all at once. But I actually usually like to focus down on just one thing, right? So just like make the drums as good as possible. Like The sequence is awesome, like all the mixing of the parts, like the levels are all there, like the transient response, like everything, like pay attention to like the reverb on each hit, like everything, right? So that it's just as good as possible, right? Pre-transients, all of that stuff. If I'm doing melodics, like make sure that the call and response is on point, that like the frequency distribution across the parts makes sense, that the chord progressions are really, really nice, that the melodies are catchy, that everything is doing its job, and that it's not taking up more space than it needs to, right? And just trying to have as good of stuff as possible. And so this too trains making decisions quickly, right? Writing stuff quickly, but also refining stuff and making it as good as possible quickly, right? And then the other nice part about this is the finished products of this are also really nice, right? And so if you do one of these every day, I recommend doing one of these every day, but you very quickly end up filling your sample library with a whole bunch of really nice stuff that you've created, like really good drum loops, like really good, music loops, etc. And you're also training yourself along the way to just be lightning fast, and operate at very high quality. And it's great because then you've got like all these song starters too, right? You just got like, oh man, I could write a song out of that. I could write a song out of that, because it's like little nuggets of a song, right? Or they'll work in the songs that you would have written anyway, because they're all like right up your alley. And so they've got like a really compatible energy for most things that you would write. So my next recommendation is these arrangement guidelines. Now, this is another thing that I would have resisted like crazy even a year ago, because I would have been like, no, this is just going to hinder me creatively. Like I need to let like the moment dictate what happens. And there's still totally room for that. Like nothing of this is written in stone. Like I could always change this. But by having something in advance, it causes me to make better decisions. So let me show you what's going on. So this is one section of music, right? This here is like a call response kind of structure, right? You could have other structures. This is just what this happens to be. But there's this call phrase, there's response phrase, there's like a fill here, right? A call with another response. This is like this whole alternative thing that adds interest and is a very different kind of thing. And then we get back to the kind of, familiar response, call, an abbreviated response with this more elaborate kind of fill turnaround thing. Now, by setting this up in advance, when I'm writing, I am naturally going to be like, okay, I need something here that feels like a question kind of phrase that begs a response and is only 2 bars long, right? If I just go in and I'm writing, even if I think I want something like this, I might hear a sound that I like and just be jamming out on it and be jamming in my head in like 4 or 8 bar kind of phrases, because that's just what sounds good. And all of a sudden, the material I'm producing is not conducive to this kind of 2 bar, 2 bar, 2 bar structure that I have laid out here, right? So here I'm going to be like, okay, 2 bar kind of questiony kind of thing. And then this would be like, this needs to feel like it is a completion of that idea, like that this is the response, and that it's going to set up a fill at the end. So I'm not stacking anything that is vital to the response at this end because I want some kind of fill to bring me into this next section. So I'm not stabbing myself in the foot, putting like the most important notes at the end of this phrase where I can't like just sub out a fill for it. So there's a lot of benefit in what you actually end up writing, and it's way more efficient than writing something and then trying to change that and like delete stuff and otherwise get it to work. You just kind of write it so it works in the first place, right? Now, moving on from here, by having this, I'm like, I look at this, I'm like, whatever tempo I'm at or whatever, I'm like, oh, this is 30 seconds of music. Okay, so I know that this is 30 seconds of music, so I can zoom out and I can start planning the rest of my song at a kind of high level kind of idea. It's like, okay, if this is going to be like a back and forth call and response kind of drop, say this is the drop, then I can maybe plan a breakdown section where it's like one part that just evolves the whole time, right? And so there's no call response thing. There's just like, this one main thing, and then all this other stuff would be supportive, right? But by planning this out, I can then intentionally contrast. And then as I'm selecting parts, selecting sounds, like writing stuff, I can plan that as well. So you'll notice I have a few different things sketched out here. These are all in this kind of call response kind of category. I recommend building yourself a library of these things. Like you're totally welcome to copy this. But I recommend actually you copying your favorite artists, right? So listen to your favorite artists, open up some empty MIDI clips and see how they break it down, right? And you can even go deeper. You could like add, sections here, and you could be like, okay, the way that they do this is they're like, have this thing that repeats 3 times, and then they have this like thing here, and then they've got some weird thing here, and then they do this kind of 2 more times, right? And then they do some weird fourth thing or something. And so you can see like this beat by beat back and forth between their sounds that they're using, and kind of break it down in a deeper detail. But that way you actually learn a lot along the way, right? So like I said, you're totally welcome to copy this. But what I actually recommend you doing is listening to your favorite songs and seeing how the different sections are done there, and then building these out for yourself. And then you can, I'll oftentimes either pick one of these now, or I will sketch one out really quick in advance. And sometimes I'll sketch out my whole song in empty MIDI clips. And again, you can totally change anything, right? These are not like written in stone. But by having these set up the way that they are, right, you're naturally going to write parts that are like fitting the guidelines of this arrangement, right? As opposed to just what's sounding good by itself and like losing track of the bigger picture. And just since I've been doing that, my tracks have been turning out way, way better, more cohesive, right? All right, the last secret sauce I have for you is finishing checklists. And if you know anything about me, you know that even a year ago, I would have been like, fuck, no, I am not doing a checklist. You can't tell me that I got to do this and then this and then this and then this and blah, 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 blah. Right. Like the song's got to tell me like what the song needs and, whatever. However, it's not that kind of checklist, right? It's more of like a check in and see if you want to do these things kind of checklist, right? So we just kind of went over this arrangement concept we just talked about, right? And, these kind of section templates that we went through, but maybe I don't want to use those at all, right? So I don't, right? Or maybe my song doesn't even have drums, or maybe it's all drums and has no harmony, and like these whole things don't even apply, right? Perfectly fine. But by having all of this right in front of me, right, that I can refer back to at any point, regardless of where I am in the writing process of my song, I can go through here, scan through, and exert basically no brain power. And, as I go to each one of these things, my brain will light up and be like, oh, do I need to cause the intraphrase flow to be better in my transitions, right? Where it's like, how is this transition actually moving within the phrase? How is it leading into the other phrase? Could that be improved upon? Like, could I like fake out my listeners a little bit to like add some interest in that way? Like, are my getting to my breaks in a smooth enough way? Am I building enough as I build? Right. All this kind of stuff gets prompted to my brain, and then I go and I start thinking about how do I enhance this song. Right. Instead of wasting brain cycles thinking about the types of things my song might need, I just go through this list of all those types of things my song might need, and then I just decide. Right. So it's fantastic. It definitely, definitely helps. You can like kind of, I don't know, screenshot or something these things right now, but eventually this is all going to be available to you. So sneak peek, I've been building out a Miro for this channel. So these are all my videos and I've been organizing them, and I'll eventually probably improve the organization system. I've actually been working off of this, so I might integrate all those as end nodes here. But this is like kind of a map of production and all these different topics that you would want to learn. So if you have suggestions on how to fill this out and make this better, I think I'm going to turn this into more of a community project pretty soon. So any suggestions, please put them in the comments. But then I want videos on all these different things, either done by myself or other YouTubers. We can put their videos up here too. But then this would be a resource for y'all to find everything you need to know about music. I did this video last week on like the writing process and the best kind of sequence for writing things. So check out that one. I'll put a link in the description and have it all pop up at the end. But yeah, all of these sorts of written guidelines to help you write, they actually don't get in the way of the creative process. And they just make sure that you're covering all your bases and that you're, at least looking into all the things that you might want to do. All right, so hopefully you got something out of that. If you're like me, you might be a little bit resistant to these types of things that feel like they get in the way of your creative process. But hopefully, you saw from what I showed you today and also the breakthroughs that I've had that it can actually be a foundation to make the best art of your life, right? To actually be more creative and to be like focus your mental energy on the real artistic creative decisions and not the more mechanical things. So hopefully that was useful. If you have any suggestions on how to improve these processes for the people here and for myself, I would be very grateful just for my own sake. But I'm sure all the viewers would love to hear that from you. So put it down in the comments. Also, this Miro board, like this big online organization system that I'm going to use for this channel, if you have any suggestions on how to improve that or things that should be included, definitely let me know that as well. I'm really excited to get that out to you guys. I don't know when it's going to be available. However, if you're really motivated, I can probably make you an admin or something like that, and you can help me build it, just to make sure that it's as good of a resource as possible for the producer community. If you know anything about me and this channel, then you know that I'm on a mission to make the world a better place through music. And as far as I can tell, that means supporting you guys, making the best art of your life. So if you haven't subscribed here, please do. It definitely supports me and actually supports this entire community. And so I hope to see you around. And I love you all very, very much. Peace.